Hello, fellow cyborgs, and welcome to another Persephone book review. Today I'm going to be reviewing Stupid Color Change. Miss Pettigrew Lives for a Day by Winifred Watson. This is what the end papers look like. They're taken from a 1938 furnishing fabric by Marion Dorn, represented courtesy of the Victoria Albert Museum. I buddy read Miss Pettigrew Lives for a Day with M.A. Anders, whose channel I will link down below. I gave this 3 out of 5 stars. But I think my reading enjoyment level was actually more of a 2-star. That last star I tacked on because this is a book whose main protagonist is a woman in her 40s who is single and considered a spinster, and I very much appreciate that. I really liked how this showcased someone you don't necessarily see as the main figure of a story. So I had a huge problem with this book from page 28 onwards of the dated sexism and racism that pervades this entire story. A lot of people love this. This is like Persephone's #1 selling book. Now, I don't know if it's their most beloved book or if it's just their most sold book, which is a difference, but I never hear people say anything but how lovely and cozy this book is. But for me, the sexism and racism weren't lovely and it weren't cozy. So for instance, on pages 28 and 9, we have these sorts of passages. It wasn't only good looks. His looks were merely an extra, naturally helpful but not necessary. It was something in the man himself. The room was in an instant filled with his presence. All the women of any company would at once be rivals for his notice. Perhaps it was an aura that sent out waves of challenge to the female in every woman. Miss Pettigrew felt it. Miss Pettigrew responded to it. She couldn't help it. Her feminine susceptibilities simply turned traitor on her, and she would have given 10 years of her life for him to kiss her as he had kissed Miss LaFosse. Similarly, if only Michael had been a little less good and proper, he might have had a chance. But as it is, against a man like this, what ordinary man has a look in? It's no use. We women just can't help ourselves. When it comes to love, we are born adventurers. And finally, on the same page, her worldly wisdom almost dumbfounded her. She had to call him in her mind creature, upstart, mountebank to save herself falling in love with him. If he had only once looked at her, kissed her the way he had Miss LaFosse, she knew she would have been his slave. So I know that those are 3, similarly sexist comments about the female gender, and they're all in the same scene, but we had comments like this throughout the entire story. At one point, Miss LaFosse is given a bouquet of roses, and Miss Pettigrew says if only a man had given her a bouquet of roses like that, she would have lied down on the floor and let him walk all over her. I was incredibly distracted throughout this entire reading experiences by Miss Pettigrew's comments on her own sex and the other women around her, and how susceptible we are to men, how swayed we are, how much she would just, be a man's slave if he just looked at her a certain way. I couldn't get past it. I couldn't get past it at all. It really, really irked me. Now, I know this is a dated book. This was written in 1939. I wish that I was able to contextualize this read, put those comments aside, and be able to enjoy this book for what it is, but I had a really hard time doing that for this read. I would love for you to let me know in the comment section down below if you're able to set aside these dated aspects of works and enjoy it for what it is with that sexism and racism still intact, or if you, like me, more often just can't deal with it and then can't, enjoy some of these dated and historical works. But let's get back to the plot. This book takes place over the course of 24 hours. Miss Pettigrew is a governess who's trying to find work, and she's sent to Miss LaFosse's apartment to be a governess to she doesn't know how many children. And when Miss LaFosse opens the door, Miss Pettigrew is swept into Delicia's life and has to help her manage these 3 suitors that she has and this kind of crazy sort of extravagant extravagant lifestyle that Delicia is trying to manage. Of those three suitors, there's Nick, the man that will make every woman become rival to every other woman when he's in the room. There's Michael, who is a little bit too plain and couldn't possibly compare with Nick. And then there's Phil, who we only see at the beginning of the book and he just kind of goes away. So toward the middle section of this, Miss Pettigrew references that Phil kind of has a bit of a Jew about him. And then toward the end, she tells Miss LaFosse that she couldn't possibly marry Phil because, you know, he's probably Jewish, and Miss Pettigrew recommends that you marry within your own nationality. And then toward the middle of the book, a reference to Nick's Italian heritage is referenced, and how his family must have run an ice cream shop or something. I definitely responded negatively to all of those comments and everything, but Emma had a really interesting point for me. She said that it seems like Miss Pettigrew has kind of been raised and socialized by popular culture, by reading magazines and by watching films. She's a big moviegoer. And so these very black and white gender stereotypes that Miss Pettigrew responds to came probably from that pop culture, because let's face it, movies are maybe one of the last place for gender stereotypes to dissolve, and the same thing with magazines. If you go to a magazine stand, you're going to see highly gendered magazine options. So I really liked that idea that though that doesn't excuse Miss Pettigrew's really sexist comments, it perhaps explains them, that she's been socialized in this highly binary, gender stereotypical sort of way. And I think if I ever reread this, which I might, that I will have to look at Miss Pettigrew a little bit differently. In this also, Miss Pettigrew is presented as a really religious and kind of closed off, maybe even prudish sort of woman. Then quickly, through her introduction into Delicia's life with these multiple men, Miss Pettigrew kind of drops those morals aside, and I found that really insulting, that the idea that it just takes the right sort of man to, you know, unbutton your blouse in essence, you know, that's an awful sort of idea in itself. I mean, consent's a thing. But M.A. also looked at this as Miss Pettigrew has had such a restricted and constricted sort of life that now in her 40s, she's kind of finally going through puberty, and she's able to look at all of the suppositions that she's absorbed through her being raised, and she's examining religion and seeing if it actually fits with her. She's examining what, you know, sort of person she actually is, just like I'm assuming a lot of us did when we hit puberty or when we went off to college and we realized that there are different ways to do this thing called life. So again, I really liked that nuanced idea, which could explain why Miss Pettigrew would be so quick to throw off her moral compass, as it were. Also, I think Emma and I both agreed that Miss Pettigrew, if she could so easily throw off the religion, she must not have truly believed in it all this time. So yeah, I'm definitely really glad that I buddy read this with MA, because if I hadn't, I would almost have nothing to say to you except to gripe about the sexism and racist comments. As it is, the reason why I wanted to read this is because I absolutely adore the movie. Let me show you it. So the movie Miss Pettigrew Lives for a Day is one of my all-time favorite movies. It's on my favorite shelf in my movie bookcase. I haven't watched the movie recently, but I don't remember it being nearly as sexist and certainly not as racist as the source material is. And I remember feeling so much more agency in the character of Miss Pettigrew in the movie than I saw that there was in the book. I significantly appreciated the love interest that Miss Pettigrew has in the movie more than the book. In the movie, he kind of is introduced earlier on in this day that where Miss Pettigrew gets to finally live, but in the book, he appears right at the end and their relationship is super abrupt and a little bit like pushy, and I just was like, Miss Pettigrew, are you okay with this? I definitely still love the movie so much more, and I wonder, we we will never know if watching the movie beforehand was a bad idea as far as enjoying this book for what it is. Emma enjoyed Miss Pettigrew Lives for a Day on a similar level as me, but like I said, she definitely looked at it with less of a stink eye than I did, and she hadn't seen the movie first, and she actually didn't really enjoy the movie all that much. She didn't love it like I do. So, you know, when you consume media and it's the same story but presented in a different way, it definitely affects your reading experience, right? I mean, that's nothing new. We all know that. If you've read Miss Pettigrew Lives for a Day, I would really love to hear from you and hear how you coped with the things that I talked about that I had great issue with, because I almost couldn't cope with it. So that was my review of Miss Pettigrew Lives for a Day. I wish I had loved it, but alas, I did not. But I did have some lovely discussions along the way with Emma, so I can at least be thankful for that. Thank you for watching. Please let me know in the comments down below if this review makes you more or less inclined to pick up Miss Pettigrew Lives for a Day. And as I said before, if you've read it, please chat with me below. Until next time, continue to be lovely.